Greetings and salutations to all of you wonderful, fluffy, non fluffy, and equally beautiful listeners out there. Think I'm getting used to this new intro that we're doing. So, I'm going to start this off by saying I think one of my neighbors is burning something on their stove because sometime around, I'd say like an hour ago, I was sitting here and I was thinking, did I leave something on? Like, is something on the stove that's burning on my end? Turns out not to be the case. So I know this because I stepped out into the hallway and the entire hallway, the entire corridor where I live is just filled with the odor of something that went awry in somebody's kitchen. I'm thankful that it wasn't mine, but at the same time, I hope that there was no emergent situations that came of it. And I hope that that person's okay, and I hope that they're aware of what's going on. So it's calmed down since I noticed it. But, after making my own dinner and then noticing the smell, I was like, okay, well, it's a little odd. So I was frantically, well, maybe not frantically, but I was searching around my area, the my little place here, in search of what potentially could be something burning, but it was not me. So I think they have it handled at this point. So it's a great start to the evening, I have to say. And also, to be more transparent with all of you, this is a podcast that I've honestly been questioning whether I should do because I have a story for you. And you know what? I'm going to stick with my guns on this one. I have a story and I'm going to tell you about it. And I'm going to say it in a way that hopefully is not judgmental or how do I say, a malicious or anything of that nature, because what I have to tell you is absolutely insane. Okay, it takes us on a bit of a roller coaster, so to speak. So without further ado, let's just get right into it. So the biggest highlight of this past week was, how do we say, freedom from a situation. And this situation has been going on for the better part of, or maybe the worst part of the last 2 months. Okay. So I want to start off very easy and tell you that about, I want to say, going on about 2 months ago, I would say a month and a half maybe, I got a letter in the mail. And that's always a great start, right? I got a letter in the mail from the city of which I used to live, the city that I grew up in, tax division. Okay, and I didn't bother opening it right away because I was like, okay, well, maybe this is just an advertisement. Maybe this is something like, oh, we're making some changes to our system, so be aware of what's happening. I didn't think much of it, right? Because, one, I haven't lived in that city for about 3 years. And two, I've gotten similar letters in the mail from them in the past that was, it looks like an important document. And you open it up and it's just like, we're making changes to our user agreement, whatever. Or don't miss this, you can now file your taxes online, whatever, that kind of thing. So I put it aside. I didn't think much of it. That is until about a week and a half ago. Okay. So about, say, like the beginning of every month, I take my important mail, like any bills or any documents that I got in the mail, adulting stuff, right? Insurance documents, really anything that I have at my immediate attention. And I go through them all at the same time. That's just how I do things. And I got to that letter from the city I used to live in tax division, and I opened it up. And what I saw were big, bold letters, some of them in red typeface, that said something along the lines of, "You have not filed your taxes for this particular fiscal year. So you have until this deadline, which was in December, mind you, to rectify the situation." And then at the bottom, they just casually put in, at the very bottom of the letter, they casually put in there, "If you do not comply with this announcement, if you do not comply with this, I guess, order, or if you don't comply with this letter and fulfill this requirement by selected date, then you will be considered delinquent." Let me explain delinquency to those of you who, probably don't know what it means in this context, okay? So we're going to pull up the definition of delinquency, just for the kicks, and we're going to see what we got here. So when you are considered a delinquent in a court of law, or by tax purposes, or by tax language, usually it means someone who is characterized to commit a crime, particularly one of a minor sort. So we have that definition in mind, okay? And below the word delinquent, they put, "You may be subject to one of three things." First one is a court order appearance. Second is fines, like fines, late fees, on top of your regular payments. And third, you may be subject to jail time. What? Okay, that right there is enough to scare the britches off of anybody who lives in this country, okay? I'm not going to get into the whole politics of it. I'm not going to get into taxation as far as like fairness and all that. That is a complete other subject that is like entirely to the side, okay? I have my own opinions about it. I'm not going to express them here because this is not really the podcast to do that. What I'm telling you is a story that I think you'll find entertaining, but also suspenseful, okay? So if you live in this country, you know that this is not something that you can run from. This is not something that you can just ignore. It's not something you can put aside. So shame on me, first of all, for not taking this initial arrival of the letter seriously when I could have, right? By the time I opened this letter, it was probably the end of January, and the quote-unquote due date of the filing of these taxes was due in December, okay? So already we're off to a bad start. I am allegedly a month behind on this late filing, as it were, and a month behind on the due date that they have given me, all right? So I just remember opening that letter a month late, looking at it, reading it over and over and over, and every single time my heart rate spiked. I started sweating. I could barely breathe, like anxiety to the max. You can imagine my panic in this moment of reading this letter and going, "Oh my gosh, did I just accidentally, unintentionally commit a crime that I had no idea I was even subject to?" So now we're off to the next phase of, we'll say, Act 2 of this particular incident. I sat there for a minute, reading it over and over, and it was clear as day. I am an alleged delinquent who did not file his taxes on time, supposedly. And I use the word supposedly because you'll understand why in a minute. So, first thing I do, I try to call the city tax office to hopefully get some answers. And what do I get? I get an answering machine. Great. That doesn't help me. So I don't even bother to leave a message because what am I going to say? Hey, I have this letter, and by the way, come and arrest me. No, that's not going to happen. That's not, I'm not in the mood to potentially put myself into an admission of guilt position, right? So the next phase of what I do, I go onto their website, I print out their fiscal year tax form that they have claimed that I missed, and I, for the next, say, 3 to 5 days, am frantically looking for my previous paperwork of that fiscal tax year, and I'm filling out the information as best as I can. This was my income for this fiscal tax year. This is what I owe, allegedly. This is what I have as far as all my records state, right? Now, I want to say, as a side note to all of you who may be wondering, taxes in particular, I do not mess around with. I have never in my life filed so much as filed for an extension, okay? I get them done when I need to. I get them done when I'm supposed to. And for those of you who are listening who are probably not from this country, you have until the beginning of the year, usually January 1st, starting off, until April 15th. April 15th is the hard deadline to get your taxes filed and to get them sent in to the Internal Revenue Service, the IRS, the thing that we all so much love in this country, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, so I am sitting there. I'm filling the information out frantically as best as I can, and it actually takes me about 2 or 3 tries to get these things filled out and corrected in the proper manner that I see fit and to the best of my knowledge. And I'm making copies, I am cross-referencing, I'm doing the math over and over and over just to make sure I don't miss a beat. Well, in the city that I used to live in, there's a very specific section on that tax form that states late fees and penalties, and you have to figure out the percentage on your own, which is already, I think, is pretty cruel, right? I don't know what the fees are. I have no idea what the penalty cost would be for a late filing. I have no idea how any of that works. I'm not a tax preparer. I don't go to an accountant to do my taxes. I do all my taxes on my own, and I do them to the best of my ability, right? So I'm stuck. Like, oh no, how do I figure this out? Is it the percentage of tax that I owe? Is it, this plus a penalty, which is, X amount of dollars? How do I figure this out? I have no idea. So now I have to take further action. And this is going to be, we'll call it Act 3 of this entire situation. I have to take time out of a workday to physically go to the city hall of my previous town that I lived in and get answers on my own. And you can imagine how scary that is, how frightening that is to walk in that giant building and have to say to them, I think I'm a delinquent. I think I'm in the red. I think I owe more than I already have. Like, can we figure this out? And of course, we as humans, we like to horribilize things. We like to make things worse than they actually are. No matter the situation, we always go to the worst extreme, the worst possibility that could happen, and we try our best to prepare ourselves mentally for the worst that could absolutely happen in a scenario like this, right? So that's what I'm doing. I am fully going human mode on this. I am horribilizing. I'm thinking of the worst possible scenario that might happen, and I don't know what to make of it. So I'm dreading it. I give it maybe another few days, and I'm thinking, okay, I need to talk to my manager and tell him, hey, I need to leave early enough to have a couple hours to go down to the tax office at City Hall and get this figured out. Thankfully, my manager is very gracious. He was able to allow me the time and flex it so that I can go and take care of this. And of course, he's entirely sympathetic to the situation. He understands this is a serious situation and it needs to be taken care of as soon as possible. So that's what I did today. After a week and a half of dread, anxiety, some depression, and some sleepless nights of just playing it over and over in my mind, the scenario that could play out. Finally, we're at the day that was today, Wednesday. I opt for flex time. I tell my boss, and he lets me go to take care of this. And on the drive to the city hall where I'm supposed to go take care of this, I have all my tax papers. I have everything from that physical year, or fiscal year. I should say fiscal. Um, Pardon my Ohioan accent. Um, I have all my papers. I have everything lined up to prove that I did indeed file for that fiscal year. And I have everything from my federal to my state to my, my W-2s and everything that you can think of. As a matter of fact, to the point where I printed out my 1099 form for YouTube royalties, right? I'm trying to check all my boxes so that they can't nail me to the wall on something potential that could happen here. And when I say that that was the longest and also the shortest drive in my life up to this point, I mean it when I say it. With every mile, with every minute, and of course it's raining and cold outside while this is happening. So the weather seemed to fit the vibe of the day. It was gloomy, it was cold and raining. Go figure, right? And I'm looking for any possible sign, anything, any spiritual sign, anything in my path that gives me hope, some semblance of hope. And it's really hard to find. Like, I do have to say, there were a couple of songs that came on my Spotify playlist that I was listening to that gave me some comfort. So I don't know about any of you, but I have a playlist of songs that are comforting to me. They're like the songs that I go to whenever I'm feeling a certain way. And in this particular case, I was playing one of those playlists that gave me some comfort. And it was like one song after another of just, comfort songs that came up. One of them was Level of Concern by 21 Pilots, which is kind of funny and also ironic in the situation. That song played, and then in the same vein, the song Hometown by 21 Pilots was the first song that played in the playlist. So I thought it funny, heading back to my hometown where I have a level of concern. Those two songs played consecutively, back to back. So in a way, it was kind of divine. It was rather divine if you really think about it. Like, hometown and level of concern back to back. Wow. So that right there did give me some peace, and it gave me some incentive to press on, because let me tell you, there were multiple points in that drive to the city town hall that I wanted to just turn around and just be like, you know what, this maybe will fix itself. If I show up there, it could be very bad for me. But something in me just said, keep going, keep driving. Everything's going to be okay. You can do this. Deep down within, that was the feeling I was getting, and that gave me more peace. But as I was driving and driving, getting closer and closer, my heart rate was spiking. I started to breathe heavy again, with every turn, every red light, every passing street, finally I arrive to the city hall. I sit in the car for a second, I say a small prayer, take a deep breath, I grab all my documents, and I walk in, just with a semblance of courage and a semblance of confidence that just washed over me at that moment. And of course, the minute I walk in, receptionist at the front is not there. I'm like, well, this is great. Yeah, good start to, possibly rectifying a situation or maybe walking into my impending doom. The receptionist is not there because, and that really threw off my dissonance, my cognitive dissonance in that moment of just being like, well, I think I think this is foobar. I think this is an absolute mistake. I probably shouldn't have come here. And I'm not going to lie, one of the thoughts that I had while I was driving to the city hall was, what if I show up and I show them my forms, I show them the letter, and there is a uniformed law enforcement officer that comes in and says, "You're going to come with me." I had to mentally prepare myself for that. I had to be ready. I had to think to myself, okay, well, if that happens, I got to think of this logically. I have to think maybe I'll be in a holding cell for a night. Maybe they'll place me on a bond. Maybe I'll just get a fine. Maybe this, maybe that. Maybe they'll just issue me a court appearance. I don't know what's going to happen. I have no idea as I'm walking in. But the first thing I see is there's no receptionist anywhere in sight. So I'm standing there for a few seconds, just grueling the thought of, okay, receptionist is not here. What do I do now? There's no bell. There's no ring for service. There's no number I can call that I can see. What do I do? And I'm about to turn around and walk back out, hopefully to just shut out the situation and move on, and hopefully it'll fix itself, like that's going to do any good. It's at that moment that a very tall, striking looking gentleman walks by, and he's looking around for a second, then he looks at me and he says, "Can I help you, sir?" And I was like, yeah. And that's exactly how I sounded. My voice was shaky. I was shaking. I didn't know what to even say to the man. I'm pretty sure my voice cracked at least once. And I said, "Yeah, could you direct me to somebody who I can talk to about late fees for taxes?" And he was like, "Well, I don't know where the receptionist is, but good for you. I actually work for the tax department." I was like, "Oh, great! So we have a little bit of a silver lining here, I suppose." And he's looking, and he's like, "Why don't you come follow me?" So I follow him to the back room. Now, I don't know if any of you have been in the situation before where you need to follow somebody to a room that's in the rear of the building. It's scary. Okay. We were led down a very dimly lit hallway to an area where there are two double doors, and the office looks big and scary and just like it's just as much of a picture you can paint in your head of a place where there's trouble. Like, first of all, I'm being led down a dimly lit hallway into a back room, and very nice office, I must add, like, knowing what I know now, but it was terrifying. There's no other word for it. It was terrifying. Dimly lit hallway to a back room with double doors and a big desk in the center of the room, and everything in my mind was screaming, "Run." Okay. But I stood my ground, and the very nice gentleman got behind the desk, and he said, "Okay, so how can we help you today?" So I'm shaking, pulling out all of my tax forms one by one, and I'm laying them out on the table in front of him. And he gets on his computer, he starts typing away. He asks for my name, I give him my name, my legal name, and then he asks for my social and all that stuff that you need to provide for this type of information. And he starts looking at my tax forms, And he's going through them, and he's going through my W-2s, and he's going through like all of my royalty income from YouTube and everything, and he's like putting them aside. He's like, okay, we don't need that, we don't need that, we don't need that. And I'm like, what? Well, why don't you need it? What's going on here? What did I do something wrong? Just a mix of thoughts just running through my head at this point. Like, did I miss something? Like, what's happening here? And then he starts typing away, and then he makes a face, and then he looks down and he sees that I'm holding the letter that I got in the mail about the delinquency, the, potential for jail time, the potential for a court order, the late payment letter that I got, at this point 2 months ago. And he says, "Can I see that for a second?" And I was like, "Yes, sir." So I hand it to him with my shaky hand, and he starts reading it. And then he makes a face of pure confusion. And I'm reading him very closely, and I'm like, what's happening here? What's going on? And then he starts typing away again, and then he looks over to, I'm assuming it was either his coworker or his assistant. I'm not sure what her role was, but he says, "Hey, I don't remember her name. We'll call her Missy. Hey, Missy, can you look up this account number, please? I just want to make sure that everything's right here." She's like, "Sure." So she types in my account number, and she sees the exact same thing that he sees, which I don't know what that is just yet. I'm just standing there, shifty-eyed, shaking, and he looks at me and he says, "Sir, I don't know why you received this letter." "I beg your pardon?" "Yeah, I don't know why you received this. You shouldn't have gotten this." What are you talking about?" "Well, here, it says that you moved out of this city about 3 years ago. Is that correct?" "Yes, that's correct." "Hmm. Well, all I see is that, as a matter of fact, you're in the green. We owe you about $250 from a previous refund that you never received." And I was like, "Huh? What?" I, and I don't know what to say at this point. I'm stuttering. I'm like, "I suppose so. I suppose that's true." He's like, "Yeah, it's right here." And then he like calms down. Like, well, he's not, like, he's completely calm this whole time. I'm the one freaking out, right? And then his tone changes, and he says, sort of almost with a half smile, he says, "Yeah, I don't know why the system puts you in like this. Sometimes the system can be a little weird, and it can mark you as a current taxpayer because we still owe you this money." And I'm like, uh, 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 "Yeah, I suppose you're right." And he's like, "Yeah, um, maybe it's because we still owe you that it still recognizes you as a taxpayer in the city, which is completely irrelevant because you don't even live here anymore." I was like, "Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I haven't lived here for 3 years. I don't understand why it's giving me this seemingly required um, thing." And he was like, "Okay, let me tell you what I can do for you. So all you have to do to receive this refund is you have to provide a you, this is I'm still reeling from this. I'm still coming down from the shock, right, as I'm telling you this right now. But he was like, what you can do is you could submit this form and you could fill this out, and you could send it to this email, and your refund will be issued to you in about 30 days. And I was like, thank you. I didn't know what else to say. Like, thank you? Thanks? And at this point, my emotion turned from terrified to a mixture of relieved, but also confused and just dumbfounded. I didn't have any words to say at this point. And he was like, "Yeah, so, yeah, sorry that the system was weird." And then he gets on my level for a minute, and he looks at me and he says, "Listen, I understand that this is very panic inducing." And at that moment, I wanted to scream, "Uh huh. You think so? You can't tell by my face? Like, I wanted to pound that desk and go, sir, I have been a nervous wreck for the better or the worst part of 2 weeks. Do you understand what you're telling me right now? Right? And he was like, yeah, it's no problem. Just send it to this email address and we'll issue your refund. Is there anything else I can help you with today? And I was like, no, sir. And he said, all right, well, then you're all set to go. And he collects all of my tax forms, hands it back to me. I don't waste any time. I put them all in my envelope that I have. And I say the last thing that I can think to say, thank you both for clarifying this for me. And I hope you both have a great day. And he said, you too. They both did and smiled as I walked out. And I walked, when I tell you that I walked in the most stoic way possible back to my car from that seemingly big scary office through the dimly lit hallway, the receptionist that was there present at that point as I was leaving smiled at me as I walked by. I smiled back, gave her a nod. I walked straight to my car. I got in. I set my envelope down. I buckled my seatbelt. And I pounded the steering wheel and yelled. I don't even know why I did. I mean, I do know why, but at the same time, I was like, are you kidding me? This was a mistake on their part. And they're telling me that I owe nothing. As a matter of fact, they owe me $250. And somehow, in their system, their so smart automated system, that I was a delinquent, possibly headed to court or jail, right? Or subject to fines and penalties, when, as a matter of fact, it was the complete opposite. So I did the first thing that I could think of after my little yelling match for like 5 seconds. I said a prayer and I said, thank God. And then I proceeded to call my mother and tell her about it. Because that's what I do. I don't know. That was the first thing I could think of. I need to call my mom and tell her about this because she'll get a kick out of this. And the first thing she said to me was, do you feel better? I was like, yes, I do. And she's like, all right, why don't you come over? Because I was in town, right? She's like, why don't you come over? We'll have some cookies and some coffee and we'll talk about it. Oh. So, to all of you listening to this, I'm good. Everything's okay. I don't owe anything to my previous city. As a matter of fact, I saw them take me out of their system, so I no longer owe any taxes to that city because I don't even live there anymore. And I will no longer be receiving anything from them because I don't plan to live in that city anymore or in the future. Oof. Yeah. I think they could see like the absolute just terrified look of anxiety on my face as I walked in that office. And they were the nicest people. They were the biggest help. In fact, they admitted to the fact that this was a mistake and that their system is not perfect. Because what system is perfect? Let alone a tax system, right? And I left that tax office. I went to my mom's house. We had cookies and coffee as promised. And I trudged my way home 150% lighter than when I woke up this morning. Because I knew today was the day. When I woke up this morning, I knew that today was the day that I had to get this done. And sure enough, it was done in less than 10 minutes. Whew. Now that right there, my friends, is the story. And that is what I've had on my mind for the past 2 weeks. To the point where I was losing sleep where I was, had very little motivation to do anything. I was a nervous wreck, anxious, depressed, and just an absolute shell in a lot of ways of myself. And as I was driving home tonight, I was thinking about a play by William Shakespeare. There's one of my, I think it's actually one of my favorite plays, as other than like Hamlet and Macbeth. If any of you who are Shakespeareans out there, you know what play I'm talking about. It is a play entitled Much Ado About Nothing. And if you haven't heard of it, I recommend you go watch the movie Much Ado About Nothing that has, I believe it has Denzel Washington. It has, what's his name? Kenneth Branagh, who's the director. He was also the director of Thor, I believe. And who's the third person I'm thinking of? Oh, it's got Robert Sean Leonard in it. Pretty cool. And Michael Keaton. It's a movie from the 90s. If you don't want to read the play, then go watch the movie. It is fantastic. The entire premise of the play, it's about romance, it's about tragedy, it's about betrayal, and it's about all of this, just these human conditions that happen in the storyline of this play. As a matter of fact, the play itself is categorized as a comedy, right? And I'm not going to spoil it for you, but I will just say this. Everything that happens in that play lives up to its title. Much Ado About Nothing. That is to say that at the end of the play, they all realize that they were fools. They were making too much out of absolutely nothing. They were making a fuss about things that they thought were happening, or the things that they predicted, or the things that they misinterpreted, and it turned out to be no big deal. I felt like Benedict, that's the main character of the play. I felt like Benedict in that moment today. There was nothing to worry about. There was nothing to be concerned about. I, as a human being, created all of these scenarios, and very plausible ones at that. Created this horrible, like, absolutely just demise, I guess diminishing, or like this demise of a situation, right? That ended up not happening at all. Nothing came of it. As a matter of fact, the opposite came of it. And that right there is a miracle about nothing. I spent so much time and spent so much of my energy and so much of my precious day-to-day life making something out of nothing, making a big deal out of something that, as a matter of fact, was not true. And in all honesty, I should have read between the lines, because it didn't make sense to me. That's why I was so confused from the time that I got that letter and opened it to today. Why am I still getting tax forms or tax requirements from a city I don't even live in anymore? What grounds does this have to stand on? I should have seen it from the beginning. And once again, shame on me for not taking care of this sooner rather than later. Which I think is another part of the moral here, is if you have a task that needs done, do not put it off. Like, if it's something that is the right move, the right decision, and the thing that you need to get done, do not put it off. Because you never know what could become of it. Obviously, there are people out there who have much worse situations, who are in worse places. They're in, crippling financial debts, and they're in a place where they feel like they can't dig themselves out of. And I honestly sympathize with that. I felt that today when I went through this whole situation. And In this case, it just happened to work out in the best case possible. So I think that's the biggest lesson that I've taken away from this is know your tasks, know when to do them, when to complete them. Don't put it off. Don't procrastinate. And if you have anxiety or depression or, you know, if you have any sort of reservation about a situation, the truth is you have no idea what could become of it. You have no idea what the result could be. You may be completely off the mark. Because since when, and this is speaking honestly in this moment, since when has human prediction been 100% accurate other than in a handful of situations? I mean, honestly, we can predict as much as we want. We can theorize something as much as we want. We can sit there and mull and gruel and dread over something like a problem or a situation or maybe in a particular place that we don't want to find ourselves in. But at the end of the day, we don't know. We truly don't. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what the turnout is going to be. It's kind of like that quote from one of my favorite books, and I've talked about this before. It's a quote from Dale Carnegie, and he talks about if we had to put it in mathematical terms, 99% of what we worry about ends up not turning out the way that we expect it will. That is to say, what we worry about is just that. They're just worries. And we don't know what's going to happen. Because that's the truth. We don't know. And you, listener, may be in a place right now that's unpredictable. And I can encourage you right now that in a weird, like, seemingly backwards way, there is peace in unpredictability. There really is. Because you can rest in the fact that you don't know what's going to happen. You can rest in the fact that maybe, just maybe, your predictions or your theories about something that might happen, something that you're worried about, you can make all of those that you want. But at the end of the day, you don't know how it's going to turn out. I don't know how it's going to turn out. I certainly didn't know how today was going to turn out. And it just so happened that today, it turned out even better than I could have ever imagined. So, that was a miracle about nothing. That is a story that I will continue to tell and continue to make light of and encourage people just to let them know and let all of you know listening that it's okay to be concerned. It's okay. It's okay to even make predictions. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to be in a place right now that you're unsure of because you don't know what the result's going to be. And as a matter of fact, as much as we want to horribilize and as much as we want to make the extreme happen in some situation, or think the extreme is going to happen in some situation or whatever result we think will come of it, and it's usually negative, we often forget about the possibility of the positives because the positive outcome is just as likely as the negative. They share the same playing field. Positive outcomes can happen just as much or just as likely as negative ones. So let's remember that going forward. Friends, I'm here to tell you that no matter what happens in your life, no matter where you find yourself, be it ideal or not, we don't know what's going to happen at the end of it. We can never truly predict the future because we don't know what the future holds. And there is peace in that. There is peace in not knowing, and you can rest and be sure that it's going to be okay at the end of the day. It will be okay at the end of the day. All right? So, I can say with full honesty, as we come to the end of this podcast, I am at peace. I am going to bed tonight with a smile on my face, with a song in my heart, and with a newfound confidence and faith that is even stronger than when I woke up this morning. And I hope that's you tomorrow morning. I hope that tomorrow morning you can wake up, open your eyes, and realize you're in a new day. The mercies are new for the day. Your daily bread is here for you to be fulfilled and satisfied. You have another chance at life. You have a new opportunity this coming day. So think on that tomorrow morning. May that be your truth tomorrow morning when you wake up. Every day is a new opportunity. Every day is a bonus. And we may not know what's going to be in the future, but one thing that we can be sure of, we will be okay. You'll be okay, I promise. And on that note, friends, I want to encourage you, the same as always, remember the Latin phrase, sic parvis magna. Remember greatness from small beginnings. Remember where you started. Remember where you come from. Sometimes that can be your hometown. Sometimes your hometown can bring problems in your present life. Don't forget where you started. And don't forget that there is greatness where you started. And as you're on this journey, heading towards your goals, heading towards your life, the life that you want to build, let's not forget that. Let's not forget our humble origins. Let's not forget the people who brought us up and those who continue to encourage us and stand by us to this day. And in the same way, always be you, be yourself. Remember, there has never been anyone like you in the past. There is no one like you right now, and there will never be anyone like you in the future. Only you can do the things that you can, the way that you can do them. And that is to the best of your ability. The world needs you right now, just as you are. And there was no one else who can do it the way that you can. And in the same way, I want to thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting. Thank you for letting me live this dream every single day. Thank you for giving me that peace of mind. And above all, thank you for listening. This is Samson Kitty Fox. I love you all. Live bright, live encouraged, and live your best life. And I will talk to you in the next episode. Bye. Bye-bye. Love you all.